Okay, Father Dominic, there are some guys who get nervous about coming on a vocation weekend, and maybe you could give them some advice.
Well, I had a very similar experience myself. I was working as a lawyer here in Washington, D.C., and was thinking seriously about getting married to a beautiful, wonderful young woman, and at the same time felt like something was sort of holding me back from that, and I didn't quite understand it, so I thought I should pray about it, which was a sort of uncharacteristic thing for me to do, to seriously pray about a question like that. But I knew that you could make a retreat at a Benedictine monastery. You could just kind of call them up. So I called up a Benedictine monastery here in Washington, D.C., and asked if I could come for the weekend. And they agreed. I reserved a room. And then on Friday after work, I drove over there, and I drove up the long driveway to the monastery. And as I drove up, I thought, oh man, this was a bad idea. I do not want to spend a weekend here. I am just going to forget it. I'm just going to drive away. So I actually parked in the circular drive in front of the monastery, and I sat there for a minute, and I thought, I am not doing this. I am just going to go. And so I actually was thinking of just driving away, and then I thought, I did tell them that I was coming, so I better go up and just cancel. So I got out of my car, and I went up and rang the doorbell. And I was just going to tell whoever came to the door, hey, listen, this is my name. I made a reservation. Just cancel it. I'm not going to be here this weekend. So the monk, who I later found out was the guest master, opened the door. And he said, oh, yes, we've been waiting for you. Step inside. And I couldn't even get a word out about, what I intended to tell him about canceling. So I stepped inside, and he didn't really stop. He just sort of turned around and walked down this corridor. So I'm following him, thinking that at some point we're going to come to his office or the foyer or something like that, where I can tell him that I'm not coming. And we go around the corner, and we walk down the corridor and whatever. And next thing you know, he opens the door, and he shows me in, and he says, here is your guest room. And there's a Bible, and you can just pray here, and I'll come by and see you later. And he left. And I never was able to get out that I was canceling. And actually, once the door closed, I thought, oh, actually, this is going to be okay. And I went on to have a very beautiful retreat, but more than that, really, it was on that weekend that for the first time, I was struck very powerfully by the question, what does God want me to do with my life? And that's a whole nother story, but the long and the short of it is that it was a wonderful grace that I eventually received as a fruit of that. I began extremely, extremely afraid of even setting foot in that monastery. And I think, sometimes as someone is thinking about a vocation, it can be frightening, it can be intimidating. You can think, oh, I need to have it all figured out before I even make the first step. That's not true. God is going to work with you where you are. Sometimes our enemy is trying to prevent us from making the right step. And he creates fog and confusion and doubt and fear. Don't listen to that. Listen to the voice of the Holy Spirit. When the Holy Spirit speaks, he cuts through the fog. It's clear, there's light, there's peace, and then you have the serenity to go forward. And what God is trying to give you is wonderful, beautiful. I mean, it is the greatest gift I've received aside from the gift of God's grace and the Lord in the Eucharist is the vocation to the priesthood. It's the great joy of my life. I'm very, very grateful that he brought me here. So thanks be to God for that.